Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, AMPIRE. You can read my work on ESPN.com. You can read Nicki's work, as you know, it's Nicki Jhabvala from the Washington Post at WashingtonPost.com. We're here to wrap up a 37-3 clunker. So the weather was horrible. The game was bad for Washington. And this is one of those games where they just talk about, I guess, flushing it. But I want to look from the big picture perspective. We're not going to go over like the turning point in the game. I mean,
there wasn't a turning point. It was bad from start to finish.
There you go. So from a big picture perspective, how are you approaching this one after the game?
Yeah, I think this was one that showed the work that is still needed from the team as a whole, and also showed that they have a 23-year-old quarterback who has started 4 games. That's the reality of it. He showed a lot of promising things. He had some good moments in this game too. It wasn't all terrible. But there's still a lot of football he hasn't seen, and opponents know that, and they see it on film and they can capitalize on it. And there were multiple instances, 9 sacks, 4 interceptions, a fumble by Antonio Gibson, where he's just got to learn and correct these mistakes. And they're going to continue until he does. But the hope certainly is that, from what he gleans off film, from what he saw out there, that, these are correctable issues.
And some of these, it's growing pains, right? And it's funny because you bring up 2 Bills players in the locker room did say that they felt like they could give him some different looks and they could throw some different coverages, get him to hold, because I think it was Jordan Phillips said they knew he would hold the ball a little bit longer by doing that, and they took advantage. And I think it's a combination of they give him that little bit extra time and they don't have the line to give that extra protection. So it's kind of a bad combo. And I think it was Andrew Wiley talked about, like, he's a baller and he needs that extra time. And it kind of hit in my head, like, I don't know that he can get that extra time with this protection. So it's the combination. I'm not going to pin it all on him, but he compounded some things, but it multiplies and it becomes a bad situation.
It was the perfect storm. And I think it was Phillips too that said they were really focused on getting an interior push on the line, which freed up a lot of things on the edges. I mean, we saw with that AJ Epinesa with that first, was it the second interception? He got a pressure, came free off the edge, got a pressure, and he was picked off on a check down pass to Gibson. So these are things that, Sam Howell's still learning. The offensive line needs to, it needs to step up and really protect him better. And it really stretches to the whole offense. The backs missed a number of blocks, failed to pick up a couple blitzes. There haven't been great blocking by the tight ends. Logan Thomas was out this game with a concussion. So it was shared by all. Ron Rivera said that to his players afterwards, that we're all culpable. But this one, I think more so than any other, really reflected Sam Howell's youth.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to some decision making when you're in the pocket, when you're in those situations and little things. I think it was the first sack when they get down to the 25. Good drive going. They got it rolling. And, once this team gets away from, you get behind, you can't get behind against Buffalo. They're going to tee off, but they're in a good situation there. And then a first down, drop back to pass, and there's nothing there. And it takes them about, I timed it, 2.9 seconds to basically look to the right, where he could have just checked it down to De'Ami Brown. Right. But he doesn't. He gets sacked to say, our loss. You have to pass again, another loss. And now suddenly, it's disaster. And those are little things that, as a young quarterback, you have to learn. And I think the key is it's one thing to go through growing pains if you have a quarterback you don't think can play. This kid, I think, can play. We've seen it for 3 starts. It's not about that. It's about what more do you have to see? And even Eric Bieniemy has said multiple times, when he's going through something, a lot of times it's for the first time, and you have to remember that.
Right. No, I was just thinking of that when he said that in preseason and training camp, that when he makes a mistake, you have to remember that it's usually the first time that he's seeing that in a game. I mean, this was really just his 4th start. So this was, I feel like this was bound to happen. You see it happen with a lot of younger quarterbacks. I don't want to say that, the book is out on him. It's not like that. It's just with more film, there's more to, review and pick up on tendencies, and teams are seeing that now. And the average time to throw on third downs, he holds it even longer. That was something they picked up on. They could see how he, really stays on that first read in his progression longer than others. They were able to jump in front of their receivers and get the ball. So things like that he'll learn as the game speeds up in his head, like it'll become easier. It's just
growing pains.
Yeah.
And listen, they
very painful growing pains.
Well, and I mean, there have been growing pains in the other 3 starts. They just, he made a lot more plays and he played well, which is why people have hope for him.
Right.
It's why I think he'll still be a good quarterback.
Right.
But this is what you go through. And one of the things from Denver that they notice is the little looping by the ends, and you get them to flush out a little bit. And I talked to someone there last week, and like the fear was, if you don't handle that better, they're going to keep looping around those ends. And we saw that a little bit today. But then it's also, I think, the one thing I think people around him have mentioned, it's about the ability to process this and not let it dwell and not let it fester in his head, and that he's really tough mentally and that you can overcome this. And I think that this to me is a big week for him, not just about like, oh, do you play well or not? It's always, to me, it's like, how do you respond? How do you show the players you're coming back?
Right.
And I think he'll respond well in that area.
Right. And they're going into probably the toughest environment in the division, going to Philly next weekend to face the Eagles. So, I mean, this is certainly the biggest week so far in the season. It could end up being the biggest week depending on how their season goes. But I mean, to come off a loss of this magnitude, it's a bad loss. It's the second most lopsided loss during Ron Rivera's tenure. I think the first most lopsided was the Dallas game when they just got
the COVID one.
Yeah. So it's a tough one to take, but take some lessons from it.
Yeah. And to me, when I say respond, it's not just about do you go out and have a great game. I think it's about how do you show up on Wednesday?
Right.
How do you show up on Thursday? And what we know about what we've seen from him is, I think he'll be fine, because
Right.
this is who he is. And like, he's had bad moments in games before and he's always come back from them. And so I think that will be a sign, but so it's a good test for him to come out and just show more of what he's about in that area.
And that's one of the things that separates him as a young quarterback. I mean, so often you see young guys where they make these mistakes. It snowballs in a game and then it snowballs to multiple games and they just lose confidence. It spreads to the rest of the offense. It doesn't, I mean, obviously he was frustrated. He was not happy with his play today. It was evident. I don't know how it couldn't be, but he didn't seem to lose his poise back there. I think one of the biggest things that at least I want to see, and I know the coaching staff has preached this throughout training camp and preseason, is his ability to self-correct.
Right.
So to not make a lot of these same mistakes, so we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a huge game next weekend.
It is. And I think, again, a young quarterback, and Ron Rivera said that, you're going to go through this because every young quarterback does. And it's, when you talk about this, I think sometimes people don't like to hear certain things, but this is the process. Right. And the good thing for them in the first 3 starts is they won those games. They won those first 2 with him still enduring some of those. And, sometimes it's like, if this game gets away from them, right? And so then things just start to snowball and multiply. The kid gets back up. And that's one of the things you look for. I also like Nicki, and the question gets asked, how do you process a loss like this in the locker room? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, you just flush it. You flush it. Right. I kind of like that he says you don't flush it. You learn from it. Too. I actually like that. I'm like, when he said that, I was like, I really like that.
I did too. Like it happened. You don't forget it. You learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't try to erase it completely. Take the lessons from it. So yeah, I heard that too. And I was like, oh, it's really good.
What else did you take from, there are many other parts to this one. There are a lot of other stuff, but Ron Rivera talked about his message to the team afterwards, which is, hey, this is football. I think we talked a little bit. I mean, part of me just says, well, it is football, but I don't think they're going to explain it away just by that. I would hope not, because it's more than that. You've got it. I think this is about, you have to play to a certain standard. Right. And while, yes, this games get away, I mean, hey, listen, today the Chiefs are beating up on the Bears. Who saw that coming? Right. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think
that was a joke.
Yeah. Well, sorry. I'm in the zone, Keim. I think Ron's point on that was, it's one game. Right. It's football. You got to be able to move on, but let's focus on how do we bounce back? How do we respond? Much like, we were talking about with Howell. you know, how do you come back from this? That'll be the ultimate judge of who we are as a football team. I think that was the point he was trying to make.
And
Yeah.
and I think, and I
Yeah.
agree with, like, you know, you can't overreact, because again, you look at every Sunday and there are weird games going on.
Right.
I mean, as we speak, and I don't know what happened, but Arizona's beating Dallas, and
Yeah.
you know, there have been some other weird games that happen, and so you never, you know, but this one just gets away from them, and I do think you have to learn. And how do you feel, like, we've been around this program now, this is the 4th year of it. How do you feel they will respond to a clunker like this?
I think they'll have a strong showing. Will it be enough to beat the Eagles on their home turf? I don't know. That's tough. I mean, they've done it before. Certainly, they can do it. But that is a tough ask. But if they can remain competitive and not make these mistakes where it feels like they're just beating themselves, you know, the protection issues, Sam Howell holding on to the ball too long, you know, missed tackles, drop passes, like
was a lot.
detail things. Yeah. And it was spread to, actually, it was just the 2 phases. Cameron Cheeseman had a perfect game.
The snaps were good, folks. Go crazy, because the snaps were good.
But yeah, I mean, the details things, you know, all the things that they preach throughout the off season of, you know, blitz pickups and, you know, the little things. That's what hurt them today.
It is. And like Robinson had struggled on one. I think, you know, I know, even like you look at the tackles, there were some issues again. I mean, there was one where I think it was on the first set, one of the sacks, that Wiley gets fooled by a guy, does a fake stunt, and then just he goes inside, comes around. And it's like, and they're getting beat there. And so teams know this. And so, like you said, you get a book on a team, that's part of the book. And then the inside pressure with a guy, you know, they want to create good throwing lanes for him. If you get inside pressure, it's going to be hard for any quarterback. And they're not like, this kid can get out and make plays. We've seen that, but it's hard for him to do that if there are no lanes for him to really squeeze through. And yet we see Josh Allen squeeze through some lanes.
This is a tough team to go against, because they're, you know, their offense can capitalize on any gift their defense gives them, and they did today. I think their front 4 is very sound. And this was without Von Miller, who's recovering from an injury. But I mean, they knew what they were facing. They prepared well, you know? Yeah.
And I think that, again, when you look at how I'm sure he's going to look at this interception 1, 2, 3, or 4 and say, okay, I should have done this, this, and this. And I think there are things. So now what does he do the next week? And that to me is the key to the growth, is how, okay, you had a bad day. I think there's a song in that. So you had a bad day. How do you respond? And that's, to me, like, I enjoy process. So I like to see, where does the growth go? What do you do? And I have a lot of confidence that kid will do that, but you have to. But I think going back to the team in general, because this is way more than just about him. So again, being around them, the resolve that we've seen, or whatever we've seen. And, you know, here's the other thing, and I was going to get to this too. The last several months, and somebody else brought this up in the locker room, everything's been positive. Everything's been positive, you know, ownership change, you know, you do this, you get, you know, Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell's 2-0 and this and that. This is the first big test for this new iteration of the Commanders as to how they respond.
Right. No, and it's a big one. And I do think that, yes, it's a first big test. And if it were any other team, maybe it'd be a bigger one. But this team for the last 3 years has known nothing but negative news. So I'm a little less focused on, you know, them riding the wave of positivity these last few weeks, because I don't feel like they overlooked anything. I think a lot of this is a product of, you know, lack of experience and just one of those days where it was just poor play all around.
I mean, the defense gave up 16 points through 3 quarters. So like, if the offense does anything, the offense had 10 possessions, 10 full possessions. One was a kneel down. Basically 5 turnovers, because one of them was a turnover on downs. But like, you can't win in the NFL by doing that.
Their first 11 plays, 3 were sacks and 1 was an interception. That's not a good efficiency model. Like, that's just not going to work, you know?
Antonio Gibson fumble, that's one of them. What do you do there? Because it's second now. Last year he had one in the opener and that was it.
This has been a recurring thing with him throughout his time here. You know, every year you hope that he's kind of nipped that and, you know, has learned from it. And not to say that he hasn't learned from it, but, you know, second time already this season. At what point do you, give more to the rookie, Chris Rodriguez Jr.? And I just think, at what point does it become more of a liability than a value add?
I mean, and you were talking about this 1 week after he has the big play on the screen.
Right.
That's the value.
Right.
That's the other part where you coaches at some point, they want to be able to trust you.
Right.
So what do you do? I mean, I think you're going to ride a little bit longer. I do like Rodriguez. We talked about him. Like I like what I think he can do. He's a good plant and cut guy in this offense. Will help.
But he's a different player, though.
Yeah,
He is more of a pure back and not more of a dynamic
and
playmaker who can, catch passes and run the ball. So it's not a simple,
no.
apples for apples change there,
No, it's not, because Antonio is a playmaker. I mean, he's got the speed. Nobody else has that speed with that size. He's a rare combo. That's why you keep going back to him, but it does make it difficult. The other thing that it gets, I would say too, is that first of all, Buffalo is really good, but then how many times were there where Josh Allen just makes a play and you say very few guys are going to make that play? Like that was really good defense. That was good coverage, or that was a good rush. And he just makes a play.
Yeah. No, I mean, he can make throws that just don't make sense. Like, I don't understand the physics of it. It's just bizarre. He can just launch it like he's flicking it and it goes like 35 yard. It makes no sense.
The one to Stephon Diggs,
Yes.
he's backing up. He's under pressure and he drops in a dime. I mean, that's that's one of those, like, well, what do you do?
But that also shows, and my colleague Sam Fortier made this point in the game, is like that's a product of his development. He was a young quarterback too. I hate to make the comparison. Josh Allen is an elite quarterback. Sam Howell may end up being like that. We don't know yet. But remember, he had the accuracy issues coming into the league, and to see throws like that consistently, oh my goodness, it was just
no. And I think there's also like, you watch him, it's like how quickly because he's seen everything, and that's it's right.
Yeah,
and when
he is very much a tested veteran quarterback at this point.
Because when you talk about, like, I know people that get tired of hearing about Sam holding the ball. It's part of what he does. And so it's okay. It's in every week. The problem is it's not every week. It's for a different reason. It could be because, well, on this play, and for a young quarterback, not just Howell, but for a young quarterback, I was seeing this, and then I thought this, and it was that.
Right.
And so you just, but Allen is a really good example of that, where he can get to. What did you think about the defense overall today, though, when you're watching?
I thought they were pretty good. Considering the offense they were going against, I thought they gave their own offense opportunities that were squandered. The run defense still worries me. The rush lane discipline still worries me, where they break contain and Josh Allen can pick up yards. I mean, that's the new norm in my mind with quarterbacks, is you're going to face these mobile guys. So if you can't keep them in the pocket or to the best of your ability, then you're gonna get hit with these explosive runs, and that's just takes away from the rest of the work. But I thought their coverage was pretty good. It was okay.
I mean, because it gets away at the end, and you have a couple. You get up a defense offensive touchdown, and I get it, and so it's a little bit skewed there. But I don't come away thinking, oh my God, they didn't get Marshawn. They actually had at times good situations, and again, Josh Allen gets out of some of them, and then they give up some plays. But by and large, if you hold that team to 16 points through 3 quarters, you're doing your job. And you just need help. You can't have an offense turning the ball over. You've got to have an offense convert. And otherwise you're going to do that. So, I think the other part too that I wanted to get to, it's 19 sacks now in 3 games. And I know, like, I'm not going to go back on the how, but like the whole thing, like, how much can one guy take? And do you have concerns about a guy getting hit that much?
I mean, yes. You don't want your quarterback hit that much, but what can they do about it? What will they do about it? I don't think they're at the point where they're going to make a switch on the line, and they're not all on the line, those sacks. I think some of these you got to ride out with Sam Howell, given his age and inexperience. But I think there are more things you can do within the scheme, more things you can do to help the line, especially on the edges. And frankly, the tight ends and backs just got to be better at blocking too. Help out where you can. So it's not a lot of great answers, but I think they can reduce it a bit.
So the other thing is the first half, the numbers are always skewed more heavy pass. And I was looking at it today, even the first drive, I think it was like 9 plays, something like that. And it was 3 and 3, and then it's sack,
Yeah.
interception, because the first sack leads to the next 2. But would you like to see a different balance? Is that something you would like to see more of in the future? And then not a 50, you're not going to get 50-50. Okay. Shout out Chris Russell. But you're not going to get 50-50 all the time. But could you be a little bit more balanced? Because I thought Brian Robinson was actually running the ball well today. And like, that was a guy, like, he's having a good game and he can't do anything with it.
Yeah. Yes, I would. The problem I always have with the opening drive is, those first 15 plays are almost always scripted. So there's especially with a young quarterback too, there's very little built-in option typically. So yeah, I think generally I would love to see the run game get established a little bit earlier, especially if it looks like Robinson is, picking up those extra yards. But, I felt like the first 10, 15 plays, the problem is the whole game was like the first 10, 15 plays, and it's,
Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, that was a good drive up
It
until
was.
the first sack.
Yeah.
And then the first sack leads to the other, the other negative situations. But, I like how Robinson has been running the ball the last 2 weeks. And I felt like he was running the ball well today. And it's funny because we have to do like a stock up, stock down. Like, well, who the hell do you put for stock up today? Well, I put him because he actually ran the ball well. And because there weren't many other, I picked him because I had to turn in before Cam Cheeseman had that really good last snap. So
Daron Payne on there too. Daron Payne.
Payne's always, Payne's his
good.
stock is always up there. But it's the running game the last 2 weeks with this kid, because I think if you want to start to not change things, they're 2-1, but if you want to get, help offset some of that stuff, then maybe that's a way to do it, is to get him a little bit more involved early.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I guess I think that's probably about it. Anything else we need to talk about with this? Because I do, like you said, with the line, there's nothing that's going to be resolved there. And the tackle, people can scream and about guys they should have drafted maybe instead to put in there. They're not here. This is what you got. As Gene Hackman once said, this is my team on the field, whatever he said, in Hoosiers. So how about that? A Gene Hackman reference. But that's where we're at, Nikki. It's, when it's 37-3, we're going to go back to Hoosiers and Gene Hackman. But I don't think where I go back to Ron's comment about his football, I don't view this as like, oh my God, the wheels are going to fall off here. And they're not as far. Is this a reality check? In some ways, yeah. But is it a death sentence? Hell no.
No,
I mean,
this is not a time to panic. I think he said it best, that sometimes winning can mask your deficiencies, and this exposed a lot of them. And they need to go to work to fix them.
There you go. That's it from FedEx Field with my pal Nicki Jhabvala. You can read on the Washington Post at Nicki_Jhabvala, Jhabvala on Twitter or X.
Oh, no underscore. Oh my gosh.
You said underscore?
No underscore.
I'm an underscore. Have I always been saying underscore? Apparently I'm following somebody who is Nicki_Jhabvala. Nicki Jhabvala, Nicki Jhabvala on X. And that's it for me. Don't forget, on Tuesday, I'll be back Tuesday morning with a game review. I know you can't wait for that one, because this is a great one to go back and watch a film on. And then Tuesday night, making your day even better, Bram Weinstein, the voice of Commanders, and I will be back with a live stream show at 7:30 Eastern time. Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun. It's a therapy Tuesday. I'll talk to you next time.